Hi everyone, Mr. H here. So good to see you again. And today we're going to continue talking about the different families in the instrument world. Last week we talked about the woodwinds, we talked about the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, the oboe, and the bassoon. So today we're going to proceed forward and talk about brass instruments. Now I have to admit, oh, excuse me, brass instruments are my favorite because I play a brass instrument. I play a lot, actually, as you're going to see. And so I really like talking about them. So this one's going to be a little bit different. I'll talk about what's on screen, but you'll also usually see a video of me playing some of these instruments next to the video of a professional playing them. So you're going to see me here, and then you're going to see me there, and then we're going to talk about another video. So there's going to be a lot of talking going on. So remember, last week I mentioned that for since this is going out to my fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, this is probably to try and start getting you thinking about maybe if you want to play an instrument in band, what you'd want to play. Again, fourth graders, you have about a year or two to make a decision, but fifth graders next year, you might be able to do beginning band here at Linda and choose some of these instruments. And sixth graders, when you go off to middle school, they all have beginning bands too, and they'll be able to get you started. So to pick up where we left off, we're going to talk about the brass instruments. Brass instruments are all made of the metal called, well, brass. A lot of people look at it and they say, oh man, it's super shiny and gold. It must be gold. It's actually called brass. But you might see them, as you can see in the picture down below, in a lot of different shades and colors. Some of them look silver, some of them look gold, some of them look yellowish, some of them just look metal, and that's okay. All brass instruments blow air into a cup-shaped mouthpiece to make their sound. This means that they are called aerophones, which is a fancy way of saying they make their sound using air. Now, most brass use valves to change their notes. You might see them say with a trumpet when they're holding like this and they press these buttons up and down. The trombone is the only one that's different and it uses a slide to change its notes, and we'll talk about these when we see them. So for right now, we're going to hear a little bit of a video right here from a group called the Canadian Brass playing the song Flight of the Bumblebee. And I know the video is a little bit smaller, so actually let's make it a little bit bigger. These are all brass instruments. All right, so we won't have time to play all these videos because we'll be here for a really long time. Oop, let me see if I can get out of full screen here. Oop, there we go. But as you can see, those were two types of trumpets, a French horn, a trombone, and a tuba. And that video showed a really good job of showing the valves and the slides and the different sounds you'll get. So let's go and talk about our first instrument. No, we're not going to play the video again. We're going to talk about the trumpet. And to help me is going to be another me talking about the trumpet here in this video. Hi everyone, Mr. H here, and today we're going to talk about brass instruments. Now, brass instruments are a type of instrument you'll see in bands and orchestras. I'm holding one here in my hand, the trumpet. I'm going to use this instrument to show you what makes all brass instruments alike, the things that they all have in common. Then I'm going to talk about the trumpet itself and what makes it different from other brass instruments, and then I'm going to play a little bit. Now, first off, a brass instrument is called a brass instrument because it is, well, made out of brass.
Like
brass is the metal that it is made out of. So it's this shiny, kind of gold-looking thing that you have here.
It's not gold.
Now, instruments made out of brass usually tend to be a little bit louder, and they have to use a little air to play. Now, all brass instruments use, your air, your breathing to play. You blow through the instrument to make the sound.
Mm-hmm.
To do this, you have to use what's called a mouthpiece, which looks something like this.
Okay.
Now, different brass instruments have different shaped mouthpieces, but they all pretty much work the same way. You put your lips together, you tighten the corners of your mouth, and you blow through them to make a buzzing sound like this. I know it sounds kind of funny.
Yes.
But when you put a mouthpiece on it and you buzz, then you are buzzing the note. Now, this buzzing goes into the pipes of the brass instrument, and it comes out this end here called the bell, which shoots the sound out into the audience. Now, obviously, we have different brass instruments, and trumpets are one of them. So, if I put the mouthpiece in here, and I do the same buzzing, it sounds like this. Now, you can see I have three valves, three little things that I press up and down. And when I change the valves, then I change the sound, I change the notes. So I sound something like this. And with a little bit of work, you can play some really fun songs on the trumpet. Now, this is one of many brass instruments we're going to talk about. It's really weird hearing me talking to me, but I was right. That is how the trumpet sounds. That's how the trumpet works. And like I said, when you work really hard, you can sound like this guy over here. This fancy guy right there. So that's a little bit of trumpet. He goes on to play a lot more, but again, we got to keep on moving. But that is the trumpet, one of the brass instruments. No, we're not going to play it again. No, we're not going to play it again. Come on. There we go. Now, really quickly, you might see a different trumpet that looks like this. This is called a cornet. And the only thing that's really different between the cornet and the trumpet is its shape. It's a little bit shorter, like squished together. And the sound, which is a little mellower. It's not as in your face like the trumpet is, but it plays the same way. You still play through the mouthpiece, use the valves to change the sound, and the notes are exactly the same. You can play trumpet music on the cornet and play the cornet music on the trumpet. So that's a cornet. That's just a little different one. Next up, we have the French horn, which is this fun looking one right here. And again, to tell you more about it is me. All right, so the next brass instrument we're going to be looking at is this one right here called the French horn. Now, it's still a brass instrument because it's made out of the same metal as the trumpet. It's brass, it has a mouthpiece, and it has a bell at the end to shoot out the sound. But, as you can tell, it's a whole different shape. You actually take the brass pipe and you've twisted it all up, and it goes through all these different pipes and tubes and all that, and it comes out this end here. In fact, the French horn is so kind of twisted up that when you play, you take your hand, you put it here in the bell, and you actually have to hold it so it faces behind you. And I know that sounds a little silly, but it actually sounds really good, and because it's a brass instrument, you can still hear it just fine. Now we also have the mouthpiece, which is a little different from the trumpets. So you can see it's more of a cone, it's a little bit smaller, but it still works the same way. You're still buzzing your lips to make the buzzing sound in the mouthpiece. And when we put it into the instrument, it still sounds like this. Now the other thing different are these valves. You can see they look a little different than the valves we had on the trumpet. Instead of going up and down, they kind of go in and out. In fact, these little circle parts right here are the parts that move, and they turn to change where the air is going instead of moving up and down. And when we do it right, it sounds like this. And that is how a French horn sounds. So that's the French horn. And again, after a lot of practice and a little bit of work, it could sound like this performance here. Oh, no. Well, I guess we won't get that performance. Well, that's too bad. But anyway, that was, well, the French horn. Pardon that technical interruption. We're going to just move on. All right. So we're going to move on here to the trombone. Now, I got to admit here, the trombone is my favorite, and you'll see why in just a second. But to tell you a bit about the trombone is me. All right, so the next brass instrument we're going to talk about is my personal favorite because it's the one I play, and that's the trombone. Now, this one is really big and really long. And this one's kind of unique, which means it's kind of special amongst all the other brass instruments. So we've seen the trumpet, which is, that tube that was all twisted up and had valves that you pressed up and down like this, and it was kind of small. Then we had the French horn, that was the tube twisted in a circle, and it had valves kind of like that, and they moved like that. Now, the trombone doesn't use valves at all. Well, mostly. This one uses a slide that moves in and out to change the sound. But it's still a brass instrument, as you can see. It's made out of brass, it has a bell, and it has the mouthpiece. Now, if you look at this mouthpiece, you can see it's a lot bigger than the trumpet or French horn. And because it's bigger, it makes a deeper sound, but you use it the same way. You still make that buzzing sound. And when you put it in the instrument, this is what it sounds like. Now, as you can hear, it sounds super funny, which is why I like it, but also when the slide goes out and further away from the player, the note goes down. When the slide comes in closer to the player, the note goes up. Now, this is a special type of trombone that does have an extra valve to it, and I use this little trigger here on my thumb to make it work. Not all trombones have these, but a lot of them do. It makes it so that you don't have to reach super far out to play notes. I'll show you. I'm going to play the same music twice. Once without using the trigger, and the other one with it. Let's see if you can see the difference. So that was without the trigger. I'd go all the way out for one of those notes. But now I'm going to use the trigger. Let's see what happens. See? That way, when I press this trigger down, I didn't have to go all the way out. It kept it in and adjusted it so that the air went through all these pipes. But overall, trombone is still my favorite brass instrument. You can move your slide around a lot and it makes a lot of fun different sounds. All right, now, taking that trombone and multiplying it by 4, you get this video up here where we see 4 trombones playing at the same time. Hopefully this one works. It does. We'll play for it. We'll hear it just a little bit. All right, and again, we won't be able to get to the whole video, but those are the 4 trombones, and you can hear that can play high notes and low notes, and they change them all using their slides, and some of them have those triggers I talked about earlier. They're always a lot of fun. Now, we're going to talk about the next instrument once I get over there. This one really quick is called the euphonium or the baritone, and once again, here is me to talk about that. All right, so the next brass instrument we're going to look at is this one right here. And I know what you're thinking, oh man, that must be the tuba. But actually, this is a special kind of brass instrument called the euphonium or the baritone. Now, you can think of this as 2 different kinds of instruments. This is very similar to the trombone in sound and size. But as you can see, it doesn't have any slides on it. In fact, it has these valves. I actually have a 4-valve version here. So what happened? Well, this is kind of what happens when you take a trombone and you go, you know what? I like that, but it's too long. I want to take it, I want to twist it all up, and I want to give it valves like a trumpet. And this is what you get. You get a euphonium. Now, it is a brass instrument. As you can see, it's got this bell up here on the top. It has valves right here, and it has all of these nice little twists and turns of the pipes, all made out of brass. And it also has a mouthpiece. And if you look at it, it's very similar to the one they had for the trombone, and it sounds kind of the same too. So, when you put it into the instrument, it sounds a little like this. Now, as you can hear, I was able to get really low with that one. Because this is a bigger brass instrument, it's got, bigger, thicker pipes, and it's got a lot more air in it, I can reach lower notes. Compared to the trumpet, which is usually super high, it's smaller, so it plays higher notes. Now, the euphonium also comes in a different shape, which I'm going to show you. This is a marching baritone. This is something that you might see marching bands use when they're out on a football field or on a parade. Now, as you can see, you hold it very much like you hold a trumpet. The bell sticks straight out instead of going up. Now, the reason for that is so when you're playing in a marching band, the sound goes straight forward towards the audience instead of straight up into the air where no one can hear it. But it works the exact same way. It's like it's just a really, really big trumpet. So, we have the euphonium and the marching baritone. So, as you may have seen, different brass instruments can be shaped different ways, but still work the same. We have the marching baritone and the upright euphonium, but they can play the same music and make the same sounds. So another reason to try out brass instruments, you can play different instruments doing things the same way. Now, let's get to the next one. Yes, the tuba and the sousaphone. I believe I only show the tuba here in this video, but to explain, we have a tuba and a sousaphone, and they are the biggest brass instruments we have. So once again, I'm going to have me talk about it, and then I'll come back with a few more comments. All right, and for our last brass instrument we're going to look at, we got this big one right here. Now this one is the tuba. As you can kind of see, it's pretty big. It comes up to here on me. So the good news is I usually play it when I'm sitting down on a chair, which makes it a lot easier to play. Now, it is a brass instrument. It is made out of brass. It uses this really big mouthpiece right here. Whew, that is really big and uses a lot of air. And as you can see, it has a bell and valves. We got 4 of them here for a really big instrument. Now, as you can guess, because this is a big instrument, it has the lowest sound in the band. Take a listen. That took a lot of air to do. Whew. So maybe for those of you little kids, this might be a little too much to handle. But man, when you get older, you want to play a really loud, really big instrument like this. The tuba is actually a lot of fun. You can play a lot of low notes, but you can also play a really lot of fast notes too. A lot of people think, man, tuba, that's gonna be boring. We just play the whole time. But you can actually play a lot of really good music by yourself as well. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed all of these brass instruments. Maybe when it's time for you to go to your own beginning band, you think of picking up one and trying to learn it on your own. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy it. Have fun. All right, so as you can see, the tuba is really big and you use a lot of air to play it. Now, here they see these tuba here on this picture on the left and here on this picture on the right with a couple euphoniums, but what about the sousaphone? Well, that's this picture down here in the middle. The sousaphone is just a marching tuba. That's if you took the tuba, bent the tubes a little bit, and made it so you could actually wear it and play tuba music while you marched. This was invented by a guy named John Philip Sousa, who wrote a lot of marches, and made it so that they can play tuba music with a marching band so that instead of having to carry that big instrument in their hands and have the sound go straight up, they could wear it, which is a lot easier, and the sound goes straight out. That's the sousaphone. Well, those are all the brass instruments in band and orchestra. I hope you found one that you found interesting, or maybe you just had some fun with the videos, or heck, maybe you just had fun watching me talk about me. But until next time, I do know that we have spring break coming up, so I hope you all enjoy that time. And until then, I'll see you next time. Bye.